have a very interesting presentation on transforming business sales through artificial intelligence to be presented by Mr. Nishant Mohanty, Regional Sales Manager North and West, India from Waymo, our business development partner. So I would like to call on stage Nishant with a big round of applause. Nishant is already here. Thank you so much, Nishant, for joining us. All over to you.
Thank you. I am Nishant. I am from Waymo. I'm going to be talking about one of the key buzzwords today, which is AI. AI is here to disrupt pretty much every department of any industry that we may look at, right? Today, our focus is going to be predominantly about how we drive productivity in sales through AI. We pretty much live in what is called an autocorrect world. We all enjoy this whole technology correcting us all the time, where we can afford to make a mistake and the technology actually corrects it, which means you make spelling mistakes, it gets corrected. Systems start learning from what we do, our behaviors, and starts predicting what we typically are going to be writing. For example, if I have this habit of saying many congratulations, the moment I write many on WhatsApp, it says congratulations. For that matter, you say thank, it says you. So pretty much anything that we do is completely automated, predictive, and easy for us. And we all enjoy it. Coming to the application landscape, things have gone beyond being diagnostic, which is where we all started with the era of ERPs and CRMs, to the current age of mobile and AI, where everything is prescriptive. So what we're trying to say is, hey, can I automatically not have to diagnose for something that has happened, but preempt a potential risk that's going to occur, and therefore mitigate it even before it actually happens, right? In the application landscape, pretty much everything has moved into a one-tap world, right? So anything that you need is one tap on an app and you have it. Think about communication, you have WhatsApp. Think about travel, you have Uber. You just put a location, the driver appears out of nowhere. Think about food, you just click order and then Swiggy arrives. What about sales? Right? So sales is an open space, one-tap sales, not quite. What the typical sales guy in enterprises uses is something like this, where he's expected to enter opportunity, name, priority, what is the state, etc. Essentially, what we're trying to drive at is typical sales guy would use one or two out of these on his usual day, and then he's expected to get into an enterprise where he's supposed to be using this. And that's not something which is going to see light of day as far as adoption is concerned. And that is why we built Waymo. Waymo essentially is a personal sales assistant for enterprise sales teams. We'll just take a look at a short video, which is a quick 2-minute, as to show you how it works. I think there's some orientation issue, sorry. You can just play the video. right. So this was a brief overview of how Waymo works and the clear hypothesis about a single tap sales solution where everything happens with one touch, right? What typically, now let's get into the features. What we typically do is we predict what a sales guy does next. We detect whether it's happened, we learn from what the top salespeople do, and help coach the team to do better on the ground. How do we do it, right? Under predict, there are three things we do. One of the things is essentially saying, hey, how do I enable a sales guy to use his open time on calendar well, which means, can I automatically tell him that, hey, Nishant, you have 5 hours open on your calendar, here are 2 things you could do. Here are 2 customers you've not engaged in a long time who are close by. Why don't you do it? Typically, all of this happens in the top sales guy's mind. Here is a system which actually starts prompting and enabling him. The other is to actually show him a very Google Map-like view, which is nearby, where it actually shows you all your leads, your customers nearby, by which you can actually start, again, connecting with them when you have open time on calendar. The idea of this is to enable salespeople to be more productive and productive on the ground and be able to sell and focus on selling. Coming to the other thing that we do is Uberize sales. So when you typically have leads flowing in from multiple campaigns, etc., then the whole allocation has to be dynamic, right? So the essential point of view is how can an enterprise maximize its opportunity to convert a lead? And when I say that, the salesperson is just an entity in that entire system to drive at saying, hey, with this salesperson, my chance of conversion improves. How do you do that? Waymo has a multivariate algorithm where it looks at proximity as one of the parameters. It also looks at a very key inherent aspect of sales, which is responsiveness. Now, typically, time to first call, time to first meeting is stuff that is reported on Waymo. Now, with a Waymo, it gets automatically captured. You're able to allocate a lead depending on people who have the quickest time to respond, the guys who have low backlog. So if somebody has 20 leads, do you allocate a 21st? The answer is no. Similarly, conversion rates, all of that. So we have 7 different variables, and clients have actually gone ahead and even done a lot of this algorithm which has actually been tweaked to the extent of actually bringing in vintage of a sales guy and therefore relationship, language proficiencies, etc., to actually ensure that the best sales guy who has maximum chance of conversion is actually in front of a customer in the lowest possible time, which means you are basically closing business faster. The other thing we do is salespeople are pretty much busy or lazy, so no one likes to report. The whole idea is how can I enable salespeople not to have to report but spend time on selling, which means think about your best salespeople mostly will be updating their tools end of day. Your not so great sales guys will actually be updating tools tomorrow because that's Friday, right, end of the week. By which time you lose a lot of valuable information from the time a service encounter happened versus when it got reported. What a tool like Waymo does is actually starts prompting right at the moment of truth, saying that, hey, how was your meeting? Which means what? Here is a WhatsApp-like engagement tool which prompts the sales guys to tap. So there's a push notification which prompts, you tap on it, there's a page which opens, which is a drop-down disposition-based menu. You just update saying that hot lead, time to close, ticket value, what product did you pitch, so on and so forth. It can sync back into your core systems, or you can directly pull out reports from Waymo. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is everything happens at the moment of truth, and therefore you gather a lot of insights, so your dashboards are more current, they're not dated, and you're looking at it as your business actually moves. The other thing that we do is also therefore understand a lot about the day in the life of a sales guy, which means how many calls did he make, how many meetings did he do. All of this gets auto-captured without him having to really update, the way you just saw that in the video, right? He misses calls, it will automatically prompting, hey, you missed a call, and therefore, why didn't you call, do you want to set a reminder, so on and so forth. So essentially what this provides is basically a journey, complete journey from a lead to login, typically how many meetings, how many calls are needed, versus your engagement slash coverage ratios, intensity ratios with your existing portfolio of customers. Because a lot of times you'll see, your top customers are not as engaged as your middle, your platinum customers are less engaged than your gold. Why? Because the sales guy tends to get along with the gold guys, the platinum guys are the ones who actually give you more business. All of these nuances come on Waymo, and all of this is visible, therefore you're able to correlate your sales input versus your sales output, which is essentially what I'm trying to drive at is create a rep 360, where your CRM, if you have one, is your customer 360, Waymo becomes the rep 360, which is auto-reported. Then comes the learn piece, right? So essentially, under learn, what we talked about at the outset was, can we learn from what the top salespeople do? Therefore, the whole hypothesis here is to actually, by the rep 360 of Detect, we actually figured a lot about what the rep is doing, which means in a period of time, you'll actually know my top quartile, typically, for example, does 4 meetings and 17 calls. What about the second quartile? The second quartile typically does about 2 to 3 meetings. Now, and about 20 calls. What does that mean? FaceTime leads to more impact, right? A tool like Vimo with its predict can actually nudge them to do more because it's clearly a will gap. It's not a skill gap. It's just the will gap which differentiates the first quartile versus the second quartile. Come to the last quartile, which is typically doing 4 to 5 meetings a day, and they're doing about 15, 20 calls a day, which means what? The sales input is as much as the top guys, but performance doesn't tally up. Typically there, it's all about skill. So there the manager needs to shadow. All these interventions can be learned, prompted, and you can actually start saying, hey, for a lead to log in, these are the typical number of meetings, calls, etc. that take place. These are the kind of typical good call-through periods that you have, meeting periods that you have, etc. Apart from that, what we also do is in-the-moment profiling, or in-the-moment profiling, which pretty much means, imagine I'm selling you a home loan. A lot of times the sales guy knows so much more about the customer, which never comes back into any enterprise, and therefore your offers, from a contextualizing of offers perspective, is pretty much lost. What a tool like Vimo does, it actually asks him saying that, hey, would you want to update 2 or 3 informations right there when you're meeting the customer, which means if I'm selling a home loan and I know that you have an 8-year-old car, most likely you will change. And auto loan and home loan is not the most related product. The tool can prompt you, you tap 8, next time you're coming back, it actually, this information has flown back into your cross-sell engine, churned, and then there is an offer, which is an auto loan offer, which is actually there contextual for this person. The next time you meet, you actually pitch an auto loan and say, sir, it's available. So whenever he decides to buy a car, it's always top of mind that, hey, I have an auto loan offer which is there for me from this bank, and therefore I just take it, right? So top of mind, we call increasing customer lifecycle value, all of that. The other is to also gauge partner or customer sentiment, right? Which means when I meet you, we all live in the age of Uber and Ola. So the whole idea is, hey, how can I also understand whether the RM and the customer gets along? Because a lot of times your rockstar sales guys will get business from possibly 60, 70% of your customers, and possibly 30% they'll not possibly get business while they show engagement, etc. A tool like Vimo will actually push you, post a service encounter, will actually send you an SMS or an email with a URL saying, hey, how was your discussion with the RM? You can actually rate, which means clients have actually gone ahead and put star ratings to their salespeople, which means you're actually now knowing that, hey, either the customer is not happy and there's a personality mismatch, and which is why you just need to reallocate the portfolios. That's all you need to do to, again, make certain customers who are not performing as far as business is concerned to the right salespeople. Under coach, what we do is essentially saying, can I be the next best action engine for a sales guy? Now, typically, who's the next best action person in the organization? It's the supervisor. He calls up and says, hey, have you called this? Have you done this, right? Here, you open any opportunity, any lead, any customer, a Vimo will automatically have a particular next best action which is tagged to it, which means it actually tells the sales guy what to do next on any opportunity or any customer, which means think of it this way. Any new lead gets allocated or you source a new lead on the field, you want him to call the customer fastest, right? The lead quickly. This will automatically show that, hey, if you call within the first 4 hours, you have a 52% higher chance of conversion. Salespeople typically have not cleared a service request for a certain customer. This will automatically show that, hey, you're going to be meeting this customer tomorrow, why don't you understand and take an update on the service request and go, because that's definitely going to be a question that's asked. Documents which have gone missing, you need to capture a certain document. All of that can be done on Vimo. The other thing that we do is also enable managers to drive interventions, which means how can I help a manager to be more effective on the ground? Can I be an assistant to the manager? The answer is yes, which means what? I do not have to rely on dashboards, reports for managers to look at and infer, because then you are typically reliant on the manager's leadership, his analytical skills. A tool like Vimo can start based on rules or, like I said, machine learning and AI, start prompting over a period of time what the manager should do, which means can I actually say that, hey, for me to close 8 loans or 8 cards, I need 20 leads by the middle of the month. A Vimo can actually prompt to the manager saying that, hey, these are the folks in your team on the 15th of the month will most likely not meet their targets because they don't have adequate leads in their funnel. which means what? You're not actually waiting for them for the month to end and then say that, hey, you didn't have adequate leads. Or interventions like, somebody is joined newly and he goes in the market in a credit card kind of a scenario or a loans, he actually goes and says, hey, goes, pitches, drops the customer, which means what? He's actually possibly not pitching right. So once this occurrence repeats over a 4, 5, whatever you decide as an organization, this will again prompt to the manager saying, hey, why don't you go and just help him pitch properly? Possibly he's not pitching the proposition right, because you waiting for the month and then reviewing and understanding would mean that you've lost market share. This tool will automatically figure those things out for you. Now let's get specifically into what we do in the banking space. Like we spoke, lead, customer management, servicing the customer through the entire sales cycle, and even post-sales, and closure is something that we do. We work with 4 out of the top 5 private sector banks in the country today. We also do customer onboarding. So, what I spoke about was a lot about how do you engage with customers, manage their relationships, sell. You also can do, the form filling, KYC, Aadhaar-based, everything that's been done on Vimo, which means it becomes paperless to that extent. And then post the sale, the relationship management to increase the customer lifecycle value, which is to be able to tier them as platinum, gold, silver. Platinum, define rules of engagement, saying, hey, platinum, you need to meet once in a week. Gold, you need to meet once in 2 weeks. Silver, you need to meet once in a month, so on and so forth. Is it being done? Can I automatically calendar stuff? Can I automatically suggest? So there are one of the largest private banking organizations, as in one of the largest banks with the largest private banking setup, uses Vimo, where they have almost about 200 customers mapped to each sales guy. The morning they actually wake up, over a period of time this has happened, where Vimo actually suggests to the sales guy that, hey, here are the customers that you should meet today. This guy just does accept, and his calendar gets populated, and he actually goes about doing his job for the day, which means he doesn't have to think and plan engagement. He just puts it, and then it starts working. This is just some of our customers that we have, the kind of impact that we've had with Vimo. That's about it. Any questions? Happy to answer. All right. Looks like no questions. Thank you. No questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Nishant, for that session. I think Vimo has been leading through the implementation of AI in improving your business sales. I would now like to call on stage Mr. Alok Pathak, Chief Risk Officer from Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, to kindly do the honors of felicitating Nishant. And we got some goodies for you as well. Can we have a big round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.